interactions. Right? Like the staff thought, how can you write a book if you can't foresee the specific interaction? You have reading. But not only that, it's just a matter of common observation. That different, even if you use the gross categories of national cultures, which we all tend to do because it's so much easier, very clearly some categories are more squeamish about anything than others. Middle class, white middle class United States cultures, tremendously squeamish about a whole range of things which Australians talk about almost obsessively, in fact, which is their way of being squeamish about them, of course. When I'm in the United States, I go, why are these people being so handy about the nearest thing? And I go home to Australia, and I think, oh God, why won't these people talk about anything but, whatever. So cultures do differ. And then cultures also differ in the objects that they're squeamish about. What constitutes the scenes with the Australia Aboriginal language. Most of that. But also there are, and I think different cultures have different configurations of it, which is where cultures like
just when close to, Tremendous argument does come with Eurozone, in the sense that the exchange of object and subject, she was also on the doorstep.
That's right.
That very exchange is that margin where you become the object and the subject at the same time.
Yeah. And also, really because it helps you understand why that which is repulsive is also fascinating. I can't do without her. You're exactly right. Should have put her on the list. Had I done so, I would also put Irving Goffman's book on stigma on the list, which is a bit out of date in many ways, but very interesting. And I'm sure you're all now thinking of a million books that I haven't read that you want to recommend. Break?
That haven't come up with, I think that would be Corday Cole was something we thought about too, which was a big insult and disgusting.
Yes.
Both in quotation marks and has an actual effect.
Yeah.
Or the ekel, that kind of thing. And how does that, the whole matter of taste come into it?
Yeah, it's another category. But I actually don't have a neat taxonomy of these things. I'm not sure that it's possible to make one because I think there are overlaps. There are cultures in which the digital is a category, and cultures in which the stigmatized there are circumstances in which they don't necessarily have to form a system. It'd be interesting, in fact, to help you to think of the various other categories that you were aware of, that we could try to take into account, because I think they're important when it comes to looking at how at the rhetorical resources that particular texts bring into play, because they depend very largely on the cultural expectations or reception that those texts are assuming and making. And sometimes they will be about stigma, and sometimes they will be about the object, sometimes they will be about the stomach turning. I'm kind of agnostic about it.
I was wondering when it comes back in relation to your theorizing your students' responses to the class, which I like as a way into this, and it's really interesting. Is it death itself that's obscene, or is it certain points of death? Is this something that you get into? And my reason for asking is I'm thinking of things like Ernest Becker's book, The Denial of Death, he sort of rewrites Freud in existential terms, saying, it's really not, the great repressed is not sexuality, the great repressed is death, and awareness of death, and we have to live our lives busy, full of what he calls cultural heroics, to forget the fact that we're going to die or we couldn't be functioning.
Yeah. That's the other among $6,000 question, actually. But I think you have to make a distinction between death itself and kinds of death and ways of dying, because it is the ways of dying that's here to be witnessed about. If there's such a thing as a natural death, people don't need to tell that story. The reason AIDS is the prolific producer of narrative is that it seems unnatural death in the sense that the wrong people are dying too young. But it's also an obscene, ding-dong, abject, horrible way of dying. In a minute I'm going to come to a new trope that I've invented, which is called equivocation. And I think witnessing is all about equivocation. It's not catachresis, it's equivocation. And one of the major equivocations is between death itself, which is usually culturally okay to talk about because it belongs to the uncultured. The very figure of the anti-culture, that which is not culture. And so it can be used as a piggyback to talk about ways of dying, as ways of dying that are obscene, or considered obscene, by virtue of association. And it's not a logical business at all. This is why rhetoric is so valuable. Because there are rhetorical areas as well as generic solecisms. And, well, I won't get too far. Let me just backtrack a little bit and launch you in the piece and then come back to the question. So I was saying in response to your great question that I think we have to look at the tropes because the tropes are instrumental, not ornamental. I feel like making a T-shirt with a motto on it that says, tropes are not ornamental, tropes are instrumental. It was working on making it snappier motto.
The other thing I gained by looking at when you have a category of theater or the literature of the absurd, it could be an ironic literature, but I wondered whether the absurd way of seeing overlap.
Oh, it's possible, yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah, it certainly has discrepancy. That sounds the same, yes. The ad part of the absurd, I think, is different from the odd part of the obscene. The absurd certainly is. I just looked at it. But,
I wasn't thinking etymologically.
This concept of the discrepancy.
They're dealt with by writers.
Yeah, which is why I come back to the idea of the discrepancy. I think that's exactly right. Let me think about it and get back to it. Okay, tropes. In addition to the tropes are of course transgeneric. They're not regulated generic. You can transfer a metaphor from one genre to another genre, just as narrative migrates. But in addition to looking at the instrumentality of the kind of recognized conventional classical trope, I want to propose that we look at the tropes, what I want to call tropes, that the classical rhetoricians regarded as sophistry, that is to say as error and as deliberate error. So it's tropical. So it's one such trope would be the trope of digression, for example. Which has a great name. I can't remember what it is. Paraclasis. Which has an interesting history because digression was originally very early rhetorics, apparently, according to scholars who know a lot more about this than I do, digression was recognised as part of the rhetorical equipment. But after a while, it was redefined, and it was redefined as an error. So people were taught not to digress. But often, if you're negotiating something delicate, digression is the right way to do it. Somebody asks you a curly question in the class, and you know you have snowballs chasing hell of answering the question. You make a digression and you come around it. Everybody feels good, except the person who asked the question, who goes away. Didn't get my money worth. The trope of digression, redundancy is another error that English teachers are all the time picking up on. There's linguistic redundancy, which is okay, and then there's rhetorical redundancy, which is wrong. Redundancy is when you lay it on too thick or say too much. One isn't redundant at random. Redundancy is proper. It means something, it signifies something, and it does something. And the third one, which I've been saving up for last, is of course equivocation, which is the great, if you like, the great category of sophistry. Classical rhetoricians, philosophers, call sophistry, i.e. cheating. Right? But again, you can't negotiate without equivocating. If you have opposed opinions clashing, and you want to get somewhere, somebody has to be willing to equivocate. And what equivocation means is simply saying two things at once, and the two things are only more or less compatible. That's it. So you agree with one person and you agree with the other person. You choose your phraseology in such a way that it sounds coherent. Or even though if you think about it, it is equivocation. And I think equivocation is probably the master, the mistress trope for the kind of writing, rhetorical speaking, for the kind of writing. So to make a rough catalogue of the sorts of tropes that I think are most relevant to witnessing, I would put the tropes of solecism, if you like, the tropes of error, as the number one category. So equivocation, digression, redundancy. Secondly, I would put tropes of turning and returning. So apostrophe, which means turning away. Also, I think prosopopoeia. I'll go around one day to explain why I think prosopopoeia is a trope of returning. And therefore a trope of haunting. Tropes of association, which is one way. I think all of these things are ways. Equivocation gets done. You know. The tropes of association, you just throw two things together and hope that the reader will make them relate to one to the other. That's called symbol laying, throwing together, making them symbol. Synlepsis would be another trope of association, which is when in the same word you use two different things at once. Perfect way to equivocate. Find a word that will mean both things at once. You're made, right? Finally, what I call the tropes of implication, which we've already mentioned in the form of higher literature. We got a class with that iron. Tropes of implication would be largely allegory. You can't say what you're really talking about, so you say something that everybody's going to understand it. And irony, another trope of implication. But I would include allusion in there somewhere or other as being a trope of implication, and therefore citation. And also, I'm very excited about the idea of interruption. The interrupted sentence, which finishes itself. You don't have to finish it. You'll see on the handout somewhere towards the end I have in mind a session that I want to call suspended sentences, because A, that's an irresistible pun, obviously, but B, I think I've found some nice texts in which we can read the three dots. Probably, good luck, this may be the first time at the University of Toronto anybody has devoted a seminar to three dots. I get prizes in my undergraduate classes for the best use of the semicolon, so we might as well have a seminar on but that's a trope of education. Now, that's just a rough, again, it's not a formal taxonomy. I couldn't, do a tree or, one of those double entry diagrams or anything. It's just a rough grouping of the kinds of tropes that I think are going to be important. The other key phrase that I want to use, now that we've come to more or less to the end, is the following. We started with ethnic with Orsted. I want to finish with languages of extremity. That is to say, discourses from the edge, which is what I think might be the final title of the book that I wrote, or it might be subtitle. What I mean by the language of extremity is this kind of catachrestic troping. And I brought along one very quick example, which I'm going to try and talk about in 5 or 10 minutes. So as to allow a little bit of time at the end for more questions and comments. It will be familiar to almost everybody here, probably everybody here. And you have passage of Dante in Italian, and then you have one of the English translation that I found on my own shelves. It's not particularly distinguished or important one, but because I wanted to talk to you about a chapter in Primo Levi's very famous Holocaust testimonial, which in this edition is called Survival in Auschwitz, but in the better translations is called If This Is a Man, Sequest by War. The chapter is called The Canto of Ulysses. And in this chapter, Primo, as a prisoner, gets the opportunity to walk for an hour with a young French guy named Jean, from memory, on the excuse of going and fetching soup for the midday meal, because they got a midday meal in 1944 because Germans needed labour, and so they were willing to feed people 3 times a day instead of once a day. And in walking along the road, they have an hour's break. It's one of those very early warm spring days. So many of the concentration camp witnessing right and celebrate. Kind of a break. And Primo finds himself, Jean mentions he'd like to learn Italian. Primo is communicating with him in French. Suddenly has the Ulysses canto of the Inferno, canto 26, come into his head. And so to teach Jean Italian, he starts to try to quote from memory, finds the bits and pieces of the episode come into his memory. And so he tries to quote as much from memory as he can and to describe the kind of fills in the gaps by describing the Now, as you know, what happens in that episode is that Dante meets Ulysses. Ulysses and Diomedes. Ulysses in the form of tongues of flame in lower reaches of hell. tormented tunnel flame. Like a flame blown by the and one of those flames, you see there's a symbol for you right there of a language of extraction. One of those flames responds to Ulysses' usual request to advance his use. I love the way they tell me your story. Responds to his request. I say, I'm Ulysses. And Dante, I think, did not know who the author was. And so he imagines Ulysses' end, which is Ulysses and his companions sail through the pillars of Hercules out into the ocean. And they're doing very nicely before they come to a large mountain. And suddenly there's a hurricane blows off the mountain, gets large gusts of wind, and the ship turns, starts to spiral downward, washing toilet. And Ulysses and his companions go down. Come altrui piaco, the text says, as it pleased another. Another is a loaded word because obviously Ulysses can't be supposed to know about the Christian God and all that kind of stuff. He does know because it's Daniel's Ulysses. And so it's God's will that those who go beyond the pillars and cross the limit, who traverse the edge, go beyond the edge of cultural life, if you like, in my allegorical reading of it, go under. The chapter that precedes the kind of Ulysses is called, in English translation, it's called The Drowned and Saved, and Italian for drowned is Sommex, those who are submerged. So, here we have in Dante, who we know about, the concentration camp, an allegory of Auschwitz as a place which Levi describes as organized as a kind of experiment. Remember, in French languages, experiment and experience, same word. Kind of experiment to test the limits of the human. This is how he imagines Nazis sitting around, social scientists, saying, let's invent an experiment in which we can figure out at what point, what you have to deprive people of so that this can how far you can take them before they cross the limits. And maybe describes the camps as being an experiment in which people's humanity was destroyed through physical and cultural deprivation before their persons were exterminated. So there's a kind of understanding that the surmounters, those who go under in the concentration camp, are those who revert to the root of humanity, like Dante. Those people are called in the camp slain Muslim. But, says Levi in the previous chapter, a few people are saved. Sometimes they don't go under. Who are the people who are saved? Usually there are those who are willing to engage in forms of moral compromise. He describes the typical figures of those who are going to survive. The last of them is a person called Henri, and his final comment on Henri is, I know that Henri is living today. I'd give much to know his life as it remains, comma that I would give a prize to, but I do not want to see him again. So it looks as if the option now in concentration camp, you go through the pillars of Hercules without submerged, or your humanity is damaged anyhow because of the moral compromises that you're forced to make. So everybody's damaged. Now, Levy doesn't much discuss his own survival, except by implication. But obviously the implication of the Ulysses character is that his survival has to be attributed to his inability to forget his education in his culture, even in Auschwitz. Still, bits and pieces of Dante come back. So he is describing himself as living more or less on the edge where culture in the high culture sense, right? A culture that includes Dante, equals the human, and the non-human, somewhere on the edge between these two. The fact that he never completely loses contact with the human side, that helps him to survive. So when he's walking there with this young Frenchman on the soup detail, right, and talking Dante, these two, emaciated, exhausted slaves. The incongruity of that picture is a representation of the observation. He's tormented by the gaps in his memory, because those gaps are already the sign of an incipient submersion, But at the same time, he has these moments of enthusiasm when he remembers bits. And the bits then all turn out to allegorize the situation that he finds himself in. They make sense in the Auschwitz context. They turn out to be about Auschwitz. The most relevant fragment, though, is the one in Dante's text. That's at line let me see, line 118. This is Ulysses' exhortation to his companions. Considerate la vostra violenza, fatti non posti agire con bruti, ma per seguire virtuti conoscenza. Translator says, consider the seed that came to birth. And you can read that, of course, being about the human race, and you can read about the races of the human, right? Therefore, about your consider the seed that came to birth. You were not made to live your lives as brutes, but be followers of God. That's what Ulysses says to his men as they are zipping through the pillars of Hercules on their way to being submerged. The adventure itself is justified by Ulysses in terms of what it takes to be human. That makes you human. And Levy's comment is, when I remember those three lines, for a moment I forgot where I am, and I forget who I am and where I am. He's taken outside of Auschwitz by those three lines. I imagine particularly the second line, you're not made to live your lives as brutes. You are human. So the Dante text, which means something quite different from Dante, functions in his memory as a reminder of humanity, and so as a factor of survival. Okay? So, last point. I need to be very quick here, but I do want to get to the iron. The Dante text is made to signify, therefore, in two radically incompatible ways. It allegorizes submersion, right, giving up and going under. But it also reminds of the possibility of salvation. It's an edge text in that sense too. It's going to be balanced on on those two apparently both in Levy's understanding of it. So it is a mirror. The Dante text is itself a mirror of the incongruity of the episode, where you have these two concentration camp inmates without much hope of being anything but concentration camp inmates. It's the spring of 1944, so there's a sense that the war is ending and maybe something will get out. There they are, walking along. High open sea, he has a little disquisition already for his pupil Jean about why Nizime is a bold and radical, rhetorical on Dante's part. He's really talking theology. So that incongruity, I think, allegorizes, is another allegory. Not an allegory of crossing the edge now, but an allegory of the irony of the witnessing acts, the sense in which witnessing acts are irony. Because they can only ever talk about the obscene in language that, like Dante's, is inappropriate, obscene, because it is cultural language. It seems defined as that, just on the edge, very edge of the outside of culture. The language we're talking about is always cultural. So there is an irony inherent in being observed in itself. In witnessing itself, which is that you always have to use the language of Dante to talk about the opposite. Greek Auschwitz. And so we are, what is the instrumentality of irony? We are, in perceiving this irony, the irony that's triggered by the sense of incongruity, to, as you always are in the case of irony, to read what the discourse cannot say, what the discourse does not say. In this case, the discourse is Levy's prose, in which he quotes Dante's verse. What does that language of culture, need to have read into it that it can't say? In other words, how do the dynamics of the figure of implication work? It's exactly the kind of thing that happens when 3 years ago when I was last visiting this department, there was a terrible ice storm. You probably remember it yourselves. Everywhere in the Midwest and Ontario, I remember terrible ice storm. And I remember people saying, lovely weather, isn't it? Right? The exemplary case of irony. Right? You say what the language permits you to say, because the ice storm is not necessarily unmentionable, but it's indescribable. Right? So you make do. Irony then becomes an undertone of irony because of the way of making it. So, if you know Levy at all, you'll know what I mean when I say that the irony of incongruity, and I would add the irony of euphemism, because he's always euphemistic rather than hyperbolical. But that irony is a key trope, at least in Levy's. I suspect that it's a functional trope in the and it's as a key trope that it constitutes witnessing discourse as a discourse of external discourse of the much. It can take you to the edge. You have to go over the edge yourself if you want to know what lies on the other side. It can't be talked about, it can't be said. You have to think about it, you have to imagine it, you have to respond to it, you have to be sensitive to it. You have to have an ironical head, you have to have an ironical head, or you don't get to listen. You don't get it. Because the offstage is always offstage. We're always on the centre. The only way the offstage can be brought into the cultural centre is through indirection. And beyond that limit, where language doesn't go, you have, run from Mars to left, or high soup. So you probably work on soup, where people can communicate as soup people around. Among other things, the title of the book on irony, which is another book that but I'm also trying to redefine irony as perhaps the other key trait of all the equivocation. I think it's just 4 o'clock, but we might be able to squeeze in a quick comment or two if you have one more question. Thought? Want to go and reflect? No problem.
Yes, on the matter of irony, there's a step over into full black humor that fits, which goes is closer to being on the edge, and it's a way for the subject not to actually face death in many ways, like the person condemned to die on Monday morning and it's beautiful weather today. That kind of thing, which brings it closer to, I think, there's a gradation there between the irony of, the ice storm thing that you said, and then the thing that probably happened in concentration camps, the making fun of what was too horrible, in this kind of black humor, gallows humor. Type of situation.
There's stuff in the New York Times. Sorry, did you? Yes. I get worked up on these cases, you can't stop me. There's stuff in the New York Times a couple of days ago about the writing of survivors' children. And one of the accounts that's mentioned here is actually an account of survival. About the first night in Auschwitz when 8 men were trying to sleep together in a narrow bunk to begin with. People trying to each other. So that when one of them wanted to turn, they had to shout, "Turn!" and they would all turn at once. And the comment that this guy makes is, so we spent our first night in Auschwitz with laughter. So there's the little bits of business. I haven't thought about that, Peter, but my initial response is to say, perhaps we can say black humour is to hyperbole, overstatement, as Primo Levi type irony is to this is the guy that's sort of private campaign to get another book. There's been a lot of writing about his work. It's fairly, to my mind, ingenious about how that writing works. It is really extraordinary writing. You can easily mistake it for humanistic, gentle, meek and mild. That's not that at all. I think to kind of demonstrate that it's not on the edge all the time. So that's why I'm anxious. Euphemism, bring euphemism. We should start. Thank you so much for your attention.